$5. Lonely black widow buy a ranch and shocked when she finds a giant cowboy bathing. $5 for the Broken Bell Ranch, the widow called out, her voice cutting through the courthouse laughter like a blade through butter. The townsfolk of Dusty Creek whispered cruel jokes about the desperate woman in funeral black, certain her last coins would vanish into worthless dirt. They assumed she'd be begging for scraps within the week. Another cautionary tale of foolish hope. But the ranch held secrets darker than her mourning dress, secrets guarded by a mountain of a man whose gentle hands had been protecting what others would kill for. The banker's eyes gleamed with knowledge he shouldn't possess, while the sheriff watched from shadows with interest too personal for coincidence. Hidden beneath cracked floorboards lay either salvation or a death sentence, depending on who discovered it first. Would the widow's desperate gamble unite two broken souls, or would their buried fortune bury them both? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The eviction notice crumpled in Zara Blake's trembling fingers. 3 months overdue rent. The landlord would return tomorrow with the sheriff. She pressed her back against the cabin wall and counted her coins again. $5. Her husband's funeral had cost everything else. The mining accident replayed in her mind. Thomas falling into the shaft. The company refusing compensation. Bills piling higher than winter snow. Outside her window, a crowd gathered around the courthouse steps. Foreclosure auction day. Desperate families watched their dreams get sold to the highest bidder. Zara wrapped her shawl tighter and stepped into the morning air. Nothing left to lose now. The auctioneer's voice boomed across the square. Banker Silas Cord stood beside him, gold watch gleaming in the sunlight. His eyes swept the crowd like a hawk hunting mice. Next property, the Broken Bell Ranch. Previous owner died alone. 100 acres of scrubland. The crowd murmured disinterest. Wealthy bidders examined their fingernails. Who wanted worthless dirt? Cord smirked at Zara across the square. He knew exactly how much money she had. The whole town knew. Opening bid, $5. Silence stretched like a held breath. Zara's voice cracked the morning air. $5. Laughter erupted from the crowd. A woman in expensive silk pointed and whispered to her husband. 2 merchants shook their heads in amusement. Poor thing doesn't know any better. Throwing away her last coins. Be begging for scraps by Sunday. The auctioneer waited for other bids. None came. Sold to the widow for $5. More laughter. Cord accepted her crumpled bills with theatrical pity. The deed felt heavier than expected in her hands. The walk to the ranch took 3 hours. Zara's small satchel grew heavier with each step. Dust coated her black funeral dress until it matched the road. The property appeared over a small hill. Weathered buildings sagged against the horizon, but something seemed wrong with the picture. The fence posts stood straight and sturdy. Fresh repairs marked several sections. The well pump showed recent use. Green shoots pushed through the vegetable garden soil. Someone had been caring for this place. Zara approached the main house cautiously. The front door hung slightly open. She pushed it wider and peered inside. Clean dishes sat beside the wash basin. A coffee pot rested on the cold stove. Blankets were folded neatly on the single bed. Footsteps would have been normal. Voices wouldn't have surprised her. The sound of splashing water from behind the house made her freeze. She crept around the building's corner. Her boots made soft crunching sounds on the dry grass. The splashing continued. A large wooden bathing tub sat in the yard's center. Steam rose from the water's surface. A pile of clothes lay folded on a nearby stump. The man in the tub was enormous. Zara had never seen anyone so tall. His shoulders stretched wider than the tub's rim. Dark hair fell past his collar. Scars marked his back like a map of old battles. They stared at each other in complete silence. The giant cowboy's voice was surprisingly gentle. "Ma'am, I can explain." Zara found her tongue. "This is my land now." "Yes, ma'am. I figured someone would come eventually." He made no move to cover himself or leave the tub, just waited patiently for her next words. "How long have you been here?" "Since old Henrik passed. Been keeping things in order." "Henrik?" Previous owner. Good man. Died peaceful in his sleep about 4 months back. Zara noticed the man's hands were clean despite his outdoor work. His fingernails were trimmed. Someone had taught him proper grooming. I'm Bear. He paused. Magnus Weston, but folks call me Bear. Zara Blake. A rustling sound came from the nearby trees. 3 small faces peered through the branches. Children. The youngest couldn't be more than 8 years old. Bear's expression softened. Come on out. She won't hurt you. A boy emerged first, thin and cautious. A girl followed, clutching a worn doll. The smallest boy hung back until Bear nodded encouragingly. This here's Eli, Sarah, and Tommy. Tommy's Henrik's great-nephew from back east. Other 2 been on their own a while. Zara's heart clenched. She recognized the look in their eyes, the same desperate hunger she'd felt staring at the eviction notice. Where are their families? Gone, one way or another. Henrik took them in. I've been watching over them since. The children moved closer to Bear's tub like iron filings drawn to a magnet. They trusted him completely. You planning to stay? Bear asked. Zara looked at the children's hopeful faces, at the gentle giant who'd been protecting them, at the property that someone had clearly loved. I bought this place fair and square. Yes, ma'am. Then I'll gather my things. Wait. The word escaped before she could stop it. Where will you go? Bear shrugged. Down the trail somewhere. Always another place needs a hand. Little Tommy stepped forward. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Don't make him leave. Please don't make him leave. Sarah clutched her doll tighter. Eli's bottom lip trembled. Zara realized she wasn't just looking at children and a cowboy. She was looking at a family, broken pieces that had somehow fitted themselves together, just like she needed to do. Maybe we can work something out. Bear climbed from the tub and wrapped a towel around his waist. Water dripped from his hair onto the dusty ground. The children waited silently for the adults to decide their fate. Show me the house properly, Zara said. Bear nodded and disappeared behind the building. He emerged minutes later in clean clothes, his wet hair combed back. Even dressed, he towered over everything around him. They walked through Henrik's cabin together. The old man had been particular about his belongings. Books lined one wall in perfect rows. Cooking pots hung from hooks in precise order. Everything had its place. Henrik didn't trust banks, Bear said, running his finger along a dusty shelf. Called them thieves in fancy suits. Smart man. Used to mutter about hiding things where greedy folks couldn't find them. Never made much sense to me. Zara examined the cabin's interior. Scratch marks covered several floorboards. Strange symbols were carved into the wooden walls, letters and numbers that seemed random but deliberate. Tommy tugged on her skirt. Uncle Henrik left you something. The boy produced a folded letter from his pocket. The paper was yellowed but clean. Zara's name was written across the front in careful script. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. To whoever had courage enough to bid on worthless land, you understand desperation. You know what it means to have nothing left to lose. That makes you worthy of what I leave behind. Bear read over her shoulder. His presence was warm and solid. Look for what others overlook. Seek what the wealthy ignore. The answer lies beneath what seems ordinary. Sarah pointed to the floor. Uncle Henrik was always moving boards around. Said he was checking for mice. Zara knelt and examined the scratched floorboards more carefully. One section showed more wear than the others. She pressed down on the wood. It shifted slightly. Bear helped her pry up the loose board. A metal box sat in the hollow space beneath. Tommy clapped his hands with excitement. Inside the box were more letters and a small leather pouch. Zara opened the pouch and gasped. Gold coins spilled into her palm, more than she'd ever seen in her entire life. There's more, Henrik's second letter read. Follow the symbols on the walls. Each mark leads to another hiding place. I saved my whole life for someone who needed it more than I did. The symbols suddenly made sense. A carved star pointed toward the fireplace. Behind a loose stone, another pouch waited. A circle carved near the window revealed a third hiding spot. 2 hours later, they had found 12 hiding places throughout the cabin and outbuildings. Gold coins, silver dollars, and paper money filled Zara's apron. More wealth than she'd dreamed possible. Bear sat heavily on a wooden chair. The children gathered around the treasure like it was magic. $50,000, Zara whispered, counting the last stack. Maybe more. Henrik knew, Bear said quietly. Knew someone desperate would be the only bidder on worthless land. Eli picked up a gold coin and held it to the light. Are we rich now? The question hung in the air. Zara looked at the fortune spread across the table, then at the children's hopeful faces. Then at Bear, who watched her with careful eyes. This changes everything, she said. Bear nodded slowly. Makes it dangerous, too. Word gets out about this kind of money. Wrong people come looking. Then we keep it secret. How do you hide being rich? Zara's mind worked quickly. She'd kept her husband's books for years. Understood numbers and business better than most gave her credit for. We don't hide it. We use it smart. Buy cattle a few at a time. Improve the ranch slowly. Make it look like we're barely scraping by. Sarah tugged on Bear's sleeve. Does this mean you'll stay? The giant cowboy looked at Zara. A question passed between them without words. We'll need help running a cattle ranch, Zara said. Someone who knows the land. I know cattle, know this country pretty well. Then we're partners. Bear's shoulders relaxed for the first time since she'd arrived. Partners. Tommy jumped up and down. Eli grinned so wide his face might split. Sarah hugged her doll tight. But we keep the children hidden for now, Zara continued, until we figure out the legal way to make this official. Bear agreed. Town thinks this place is empty. Better it stays that way until we're ready. They spent the afternoon planning. Bear knew which neighbors might sell cattle cheap. Zara calculated how much they could spend without raising suspicions. The children offered to help with chores and stay out of sight. As evening approached, they sat around Henrik's old table, sharing a simple meal. The fortune was carefully hidden again, but its presence changed everything. Zara watched Bear cut Tommy's meat into small pieces, saw him listen patiently to Sarah's questions about her doll's imaginary adventures, noticed how Eli copied Bear's every movement like a devoted pupil. This man had been protecting these children for months, sharing his own meager supplies, keeping them safe while asking nothing in return. The children adored him completely. Tomorrow I'll ride to town, Zara said. Start buying supplies. You stay here with them. Bear nodded. What do we tell people? That you're my hired hand. I'm paying you in meals and a place to sleep. And the children? Zara looked at their 3 small faces in the lamplight. Tomorrow she would start building something impossible. A family, a future, a life worth living. They're our secret for now, but not forever. 3 weeks passed in careful routine. Zara rode to town twice weekly for supplies. Bear managed the ranch and kept the children hidden. Their deception grew stronger with practice. She purchased 6 cattle from a struggling neighbor, paid in silver coins that raised eyebrows but no direct questions. The animals grazed peacefully in Henrik's old pastures. Bear proved invaluable with repairs. His massive hands worked with surprising delicacy on broken fence posts. He could lift beams that would require 3 ordinary men. The children helped by handing him tools and staying quiet when strangers passed. Little Eli followed Bear everywhere. The boy mimicked his movements during morning chores. Bear taught him to rope fence posts and gentle spooked cattle with patient words instead of force. Sarah discovered a love for numbers when Zara showed her the ranch ledgers. The girl had a quick mind for addition and subtraction. She helped count supplies and track expenses with careful precision. Tommy knew every inch of the property. Henrik had shown him secret trails and hidden water sources. The boy became their early warning system, spotting approaching visitors long before they reached the house. But cracks appeared in their careful facade. Banker Cord visited the general store while Zara shopped for flour. His eyes lingered on the silver coins she counted onto the counter. She felt his stare like ice between her shoulder blades. Widow Blake seems to be managing better than expected. he told the shopkeeper loud enough for everyone to hear. Zara purchased her supplies quickly and left without responding. 2 days later, Sheriff Keene rode onto the ranch property. Bear spotted him coming and whistled a warning. The children vanished into the woods like smoke. Keene was a lean man with calculating eyes. He wore his badge like armor and spoke with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Routine inspection," he announced, though his gaze swept the property with unusual interest. Bear emerged from the barn, hay still clinging to his massive frame. His normally gentle demeanor shifted when he saw the sheriff. Something cold flickered in his expression. "Sheriff," Bear said carefully. Keene studied Bear's face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Do I know you?" "Don't think so." The sheriff circled the property slowly. He peered into the barn and examined the cattle. His questions seemed casual but felt pointed. "How many head you running?" "6 so far, building up slow." "Mrs. Blake paying you in what?" "Land's not worth much." "Meals and a roof. Suits me fine." Keene's horse snorted and pawed the ground. The sheriff patted its neck, but never stopped watching Bear. "Funny thing about this place. Previous owner was mighty secretive. Folks wondered what he might have been hiding out here." Bear's expression never changed. Just an old man who liked his privacy. After Keene left, the children crept back from the woods. Tommy's face was pale with worry. "He's been asking questions in town," the boy whispered. "Mrs. Trent at the inn told me. Wants to know who's been buying supplies and paying with silver." Zara felt the first real flutter of fear. They'd been careful, but not careful enough. That evening, she found a note tucked under her saddle. The paper was rough and the writing crude. "Some secrets ain't worth keeping. Smart folks know when to move on." Bear examined the note by lamplight. His jaw tightened as he read. "Someone's watching us." "Who?" "Could be anyone. Town's full of people who think widows shouldn't own property." But Zara heard something else in his voice, a recognition he wasn't sharing. The next morning brought a traveling merchant to their door. Old Pete Williams sold pots and fabric to isolated homesteads. His wagon creaked with domestic supplies, and his tongue wagged with gossip. The children were helping Bear mend fence behind the barn. They should have been invisible from the front yard. Should have been. Pete's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of Sarah's blue dress through the slats. He said nothing during his sales pitch, but Zara saw him glance toward the barn repeatedly. After he left, Bear gathered the children close. "He saw you." Sarah's lip trembled. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to watch the wagon." Bear's massive hand rested gently on her small shoulder. "Not your fault, little bird, but he'll talk." Pete Williams had indeed talked. By week's end, whispers followed Zara through town. The widow had children on her property. Where had they come from? Why were they hidden? Cord cornered her outside the bank with questions wrapped in false concern. "Heard you might have youngsters staying with you. Town has resources for orphans. Proper schooling and such. Just helping some neighbors temporarily." His smile was sharp as a blade. "Course you are. Just want to make sure everything's legal and proper." The threat was clear. One wrong step and authority would come calling. That night, another note appeared, this time pinned to their front door. "Last warning, pack up or face consequences." Bear crumpled the paper in his enormous fist. When he looked up, Zara saw something dangerous flicker behind his gentle eyes. "There's things about me you don't know," he said quietly. "Tell me." He hesitated like a man choosing between safety and truth. "I used to wear a badge, different town, different life. Lost it when I stood up to corruption." Zara waited for more explanation. "Sheriff Keene. I know him from before. Worked together in Copper Falls. He's the reason I lost everything." The pieces clicked together in Zara's mind. Keene's recognition, his unusual interest in their property, the timing of the threatening notes. He knows you're here. Knows and remembers. Question is what he plans to do about it. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Rain drummed against the cabin windows all night. By morning, the threatening notes had multiplied. Someone had scattered them around the property like poisonous seeds. Bear gathered the soggy papers with grim determination. Each message grew bolder than the last. Whoever wanted them gone was running out of patience. Zara found him burning the notes in the kitchen stove. His massive hands fed paper to the flames with mechanical precision. "Time you knew the whole truth," he said without looking up. The children sat at the kitchen table, sensing the adult's tension. Tommy clutched a wooden horse Henrik had carved for him. Sarah held her doll close. Eli watched Bear with worried eyes. Bear pulled out a chair and sat heavily. The wood creaked under his weight. 5 years ago, I was sheriff of Copper Falls. Thought I was doing good work, protecting people, serving justice. He stared at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Had a deputy named Horace Keene. Ambitious man, always looking for angles to advance his career. Zara settled across from him. The children leaned closer to hear over the rain. Native family lived on the edge of town. Peaceful folks. Ran a small trading post. Never caused trouble for anyone. Bear's voice grew quieter. Rich cattle baron wanted their land. Claimed they were squatting illegally. Brought legal papers that looked official enough. Tommy's wooden horse clattered to the floor. Sarah reached down to retrieve it. Keene told me to evict them. Clear them out by force if necessary. Said it was the law. Bear stood and paced to the window. Rain streaked down the glass like tears. But the papers were forgeries. I could tell by the stamps and signatures. The family owned that land fair and square. What did you do? Zara asked. Refused the order. Told Keene the eviction was illegal. Said I'd expose the cattle baron's fraud if he pushed it. Bear's reflection in the window looked haunted. Keene didn't like that answer. Next morning, money went missing from the town treasury. $500. Keene found it hidden in my saddlebags. Zara understood immediately. He framed you. Town council stripped my badge that same day. Keene got promoted to sheriff. I left Copper Falls with nothing but my horse and the clothes on my back. Eli's small voice broke the silence. What happened to the family? Bear's shoulders slumped. Evicted within the week. Lost everything they'd built. Last I heard, they'd moved north to Canada. The rain seemed louder now. Thunder rolled across the valley like distant cannon fire. Keene knows I'm here, Bear continued. Knows I could still expose what he did. That makes me dangerous. Zara's mind raced through implications. The threatening notes, the questions about our property. He's trying to scare us off. Gets worse. If he's working with Cord now, they might know about Henrik's gold. Tommy sat up straighter. How could they know? Henrik was careful, but not invisible. 40 years of not trusting banks means 40 years of converting paper money to coins. Someone might have noticed patterns. Sarah clutched her doll tighter. Are they going to take our home? The word home hit Bear like a physical blow. These children had found something precious here. Safety. Family. Love. Not if I can help it, he said quietly. But even as he spoke, hoofbeats splashed through the muddy yard outside. Multiple horses. Official business. Zara peered through the curtain. Sheriff Keene sat his mount in the rain, water dripping from his hat brim. 2 other men flanked him. One wore a deputy's badge. The other looked like hired muscle. Bear whistled low. The children knew the signal. They scattered to their hiding places with practiced efficiency. Keene dismounted and approached the front door. His boots squelched in the mud. He knocked with the authority of a man who expected immediate compliance. Mrs. Blake, need to speak with you about some concerns. Zara opened the door, but didn't invite them inside. Rain soaked her dress within seconds. What concerns? Keene's eyes searched past her into the cabin. Reports of children on your property, minors without proper guardianship. Territory has laws about such things. I don't know what you mean. Course you don't. Keene's smile was cold as winter wind. But neighbors talk. Merchants see things. Children need proper supervision. Bear appeared in the doorway behind Zara. His presence filled the frame completely. Keene's expression hardened. Hello, Magnus. Been a long time. Not long enough, Horace. The two men stared at each other across years of bitter history. Rain continued falling between them like a curtain. "Funny finding you here," Keene said. "Man with your history working for a widow with mysterious silver coins." "Nothing mysterious about honest work." "Honest?" Keene laughed. "That's rich coming from a thief." Bear's hands clenched into fists. Zara stepped between them before violence could erupt. "Sheriff, if you have official business, state it clearly. Otherwise, you're trespassing." Keene produced a folded document from his coat. "Warrant to search the premises. Looking for evidence of child endangerment and possible theft." The paper looked official enough. Stamps and signatures in all the right places. But Zara had learned to be suspicious of documents that appeared too convenient. "This gives me authority over any minors found on the property," Keene continued. "For their own protection, of course." Bear's jaw worked silently. His gentle nature warred with protective instincts. "You won't find anything here," Zara said. "We'll see about that." Keene gestured to his men. They dismounted and began searching the outbuildings. The hired muscle kicked over crates and scattered tools. The deputy examined every corner with methodical precision. Inside the cabin, Keene's eyes cataloged every detail. He noted the clean dishes, folded blankets, and fresh food supplies. "Living pretty well for a widow who paid $5 for worthless land. I work hard for what I have." "Sure you do." His search grew more aggressive. He overturned chairs and dumped drawers, looking for evidence, looking for children, looking for gold. But Henrik had hidden his treasures too well, and the children had learned to disappear completely. After an hour, Keene emerged empty-handed but unsatisfied. "This isn't over," he told Bear. "I know what you are, know what you've done. Won't let you corrupt innocent folks with your criminal ways." Bear stepped forward. For a moment, violence hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. "Touch this family, and you'll answer to me." Keene's hand drifted toward his gun. "That a threat?" "Promise." After Keene rode away, the children emerged from their hiding places like ghosts returning to life. Tommy crawled out from under the floorboards. Sarah slipped down from the roof beams. Eli uncurled himself from inside an old grain barrel. Their faces showed the strain of absolute silence, of holding their breath while strangers searched for them. Bear knelt and gathered all three children close. His massive arms created a protective circle around their small bodies. "We can't keep running and hiding," Zara said quietly. Bear looked up at her. Rain still dripped from his dark hair. "What are you thinking?" "We fight back. Expose Keene's corruption before he destroys us. Last time I tried that, I lost everything." Zara pulled Henrik's original letter from its hiding place. She'd read it dozens of times, but now she noticed details she'd missed before. Henrik knew about corruption in this territory. "Look at this passage." She pointed to faded ink near the bottom of the page. "False papers plague honest families. Sheriffs and bankers work together like wolves in a pack. Evidence exists for those brave enough to seek it." Bear studied the letter carefully. He knew about Keene and Cord. More than knew. He was gathering proof. Tommy tugged on Zara's sleeve. Uncle Henrik kept papers in the cellar, said they were important documents. The cellar was a cramped space beneath the kitchen floorboards. Henrik had used it for storing root vegetables and preserved foods. But Tommy led them to a section hidden behind stacked potato crates. A metal strongbox sat wedged against the stone foundation. The lock had rusted solid, but Bear's strength made quick work of the mechanism. Inside were dozens of documents: legal papers, bank records, correspondence between Keene and various officials, evidence of a systematic scheme to steal property from desperate families. Zara's hands shook as she read through the papers. They've done this before, multiple times, always the same pattern. Bear examined a letter written in Keene's handwriting. Find families in financial trouble. Offer them impossible choices. When they refuse, manufacture legal reasons to seize their property. Sarah peered over Zara's shoulder at a bank ledger. The numbers don't add up right. Money goes in but doesn't come out where it should. The girl's mathematical instincts were correct. Cord's records showed clear evidence of embezzlement and fraud. This is enough to destroy them both, Zara said, but Bear shook his head grimly. Evidence only matters if people believe it. Keene has a badge. Cord controls the bank. Who's going to take our word against theirs? Eli spoke up in his small voice. Mrs. Trent believes you. She told me so. The innkeeper had indeed shown them kindness. Her establishment served as neutral ground where travelers and townspeople gathered. A town meeting, Zara said suddenly. Public forum where everyone can hear the truth. Keene will never allow it. He can't stop it if we don't give him advance notice. They spent the evening planning. Quila Trent would host an emergency town meeting about concerns regarding local governance. The invitation would spread through gossip rather than official channels. Bear worried about putting the children at risk, but Tommy surprised them all with his determination. We want to help. This is our home, too. Sarah nodded fiercely. People should know what Sheriff Keene really is. Even little Eli puffed out his chest with courage. I'm not scared of him anymore. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. A federal marshal arrived in town asking questions about territorial land disputes. Word spread quickly through the community. Marshal James Crawford was a no-nonsense man with steel-gray hair and honest eyes. He'd been investigating reports of fraudulent seizures across 3 counties. Quila Trent quietly suggested he attend the evening meeting at her inn. She mentioned nothing about specific accusations, only that concerned citizens wanted to discuss local issues. By sunset, the inn's main room was packed. Ranchers, merchants, families, and drifters filled every chair and lined the walls. Everyone sensed something important was about to happen. Keene arrived with his deputy and Cord in tow. They positioned themselves near the door like guards ready to stop trouble. Marshal Crawford sat quietly in the corner, watching and listening. Zara stood first. Her black dress was simple but dignified. Her voice carried clearly across the crowded room. Citizens of Dusty Creek, we gather tonight because truth matters more than comfort. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Keene's hand rested on his gun butt. Bear stepped forward and placed Henrik's documents on a central table. These papers tell a story of corruption and theft, of officials who betrayed their oaths for personal gain. That's enough, Keene interrupted. This man is a known criminal. His word means nothing. But Zara had anticipated this attack. She pulled out additional evidence Bear had never seen before. Magnus Weston was framed for theft in Copper Falls. The real thief sits among us tonight. She revealed documents proving Keene had stolen the treasury money himself. Bank records showed deposits into his personal account matching the missing funds. The crowd stirred restlessly. People began connecting dots they'd previously ignored. Tommy stepped forward despite Bear's protective gesture. His young voice cut through the adult tension. Sheriff Keene came to our home with fake papers, tried to take us away from the people who love us. Sarah joined her voice to his. He searched our house like we were criminals. But we're just children who needed a family. Eli's small hand slipped into Bear's massive one. He's a mean man who hurts people. The sight of 3 brave children standing up to corrupt authority moved the crowd more than any adult testimony could. Marshal Crawford rose from his corner seat. His badge caught the lamplight. I've heard enough testimony to warrant further investigation. Keene's face paled. This is all lies and fabrication. Then you won't mind answering questions under oath. Crawford's steady gaze swept the room. I'll be conducting interviews tomorrow. Anyone with information about fraudulent land seizures or official misconduct should speak with me privately. The crowd began to disperse, but the energy had shifted. People looked at Keene and Cord with new suspicion. Bear kept the children close as they prepared to leave. Zara gathered the evidence carefully. For the first time in months, hope felt stronger than fear. Marshal Crawford worked quickly. By dawn, federal warrants were issued for both Keene and Cord. The evidence from Henrik's strongbox proved overwhelming when combined with testimony from other victims across the territory. Keene tried to flee during the night. Crawford's deputies caught him 2 miles outside town with saddlebags full of stolen money. The corrupt sheriff's career ended in handcuffs and disgrace. Cord lasted until noon before confessing everything. The banker's records revealed a network of fraudulent seizures spanning 5 years. Dozens of families had lost their homes to his manufactured legal schemes. Word spread through Dusty Creek like wildfire. The widow who'd paid $5 for worthless land had exposed the biggest corruption scandal in territorial history. Zara stood in her kitchen 3 days later, watching Bear teach Eli how to milk their new cow. The boy's face scrunched in concentration as white streams hit the metal bucket. Tommy helped Sarah collect eggs from their expanding chicken coop. The girl counted each one carefully and recorded the number in her neat handwriting. Their family had grown solid and real in ways that legal papers couldn't capture. Crawford knocked on their door that afternoon with official documents. His weathered face wore the expression of a man delivering good news. Territorial Court reviewed your case. All charges against Magnus Weston are officially dismissed. His record is cleared completely. Bear accepted the papers with hands that barely trembled. 5 years of carrying false shame lifted from his shoulders like shed weight. There's more, Crawford continued. Governor's offering you a position. Sheriff of Copper Falls. Town needs honest law enforcement after what happened. The children stopped their chores to listen. Their faces showed worry that Bear might leave them. Bear folded the official offer without reading it completely. Appreciate the consideration, but my place is here. Relief flooded 3 small faces. Tommy grinned so wide his cheeks hurt. Sarah hugged her doll tight. Eli actually whooped with joy. Crawford nodded approvingly. Figured you'd say that. Family's worth more than badges anyway. The marshal's next stop was the territorial courthouse. Legal guardianship papers for all 3 children were processed within hours. Zara's adoption requests faced no opposition from anyone. Cord's seized assets were returned to his victims. The Broken Bell Ranch received clear title without any lingering legal challenges. Their property was officially and completely theirs. 2 weeks later, Keela Trent hosted a community celebration at her inn. Half the territory showed up to honor the people who'd stood against corruption. Bear sat uncomfortably as folks praised his courage. He preferred working with his hands to receiving attention, but the children basked in the recognition their family deserved. A traveling newspaper reporter interviewed Zara about her story. The article would spread their tale across 3 territories, inspiring other families to fight injustice. What made you brave enough to challenge corrupt officials? The reporter asked. Zara looked across the crowded inn at Bear helping Tommy reach the dessert table, at Sarah showing her mathematical skills to impressed adults, at Eli charming everyone with his infectious laughter. Wasn't courage, was necessity. Some things are worth any risk. The reporter scribbled notes furiously, trying to capture the quiet dignity in her voice. Spring arrived early that year. The Broken Bell Ranch flourished under careful management and hidden investment. Their cattle herd grew to 30 head without attracting unwanted attention. Bear's gentle methods with animals proved more effective than force. Word spread about his skills, bringing visitors seeking advice about difficult horses and spooked livestock. Sarah's mathematical abilities caught the attention of the traveling school teacher. The girl was advanced beyond her years and hungry for more complex problems to solve. Tommy knew every plant and animal on their property. His knowledge of the land made him invaluable for planning improvements and finding natural resources. Little Eli grew taller and stronger under proper nutrition and loving care. His laughter filled corners of the ranch that had been silent for years. Zara managed their finances with the skill of a trained accountant. Henrik's gold was invested wisely in legitimate business ventures. Their wealth grew steadily without anyone suspecting its true extent. 6 months after Keene's arrest, they established the Henrik Larson Fund for Territorial Orphans. The program provided food, shelter, and education for children without families. Keela Trent served as the fund's local administrator. Her inn became an unofficial placement center where abandoned children could find temporary safety. Bear and Zara interviewed potential adoptive families personally. Their experience taught them to recognize genuine love versus mere charity. The first family to receive help was a young couple who'd lost their farm to Keen's schemes. They adopted twin girls who'd been living rough since their parents died of fever. More success stories followed. The fund's reputation spread across the territory, attracting donations from wealthy families who wanted to support the cause. Winter brought their first major test as an official family. A blizzard trapped them inside for 6 days with dwindling supplies and no outside contact. But instead of panic or despair, they found comfort in each other's presence. Bear told stories by the fireplace. Sarah taught arithmetic games. Tommy shared Henrik's old tales about surviving harsh weather. Eli declared it the best week of his entire life. Spring thaw revealed their ranch in perfect condition. Bear's careful preparations had protected every building and animal through the worst weather in 20 years. New neighbors arrived that season. A family of German immigrants purchased the abandoned Schultz place 2 miles south. Bear helped them repair their barn, while Zara shared vegetable seeds from Sarah's carefully tended garden. The children played with the immigrant family's daughters, teaching them English words while learning basic German phrases in return. Community ties strengthened as people realized the value of helping each other survive frontier hardships. On the first anniversary of her $5 purchase, Zara stood on her front porch watching sunset paint the mountains gold. Bear worked in the corral with a young horse that needed patient gentling. The children's voices carried across the yard as they finished evening chores, happy sounds of a family that belonged together completely. Marshall Crawford had been right. Family was worth more than badges, worth more than gold, worth everything they'd risked to build it. Their impossible dream had become solid reality through courage, love, and the wisdom to recognize what truly mattered.